Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be going over the 918 AD carry tier list. So as always, if you enjoy the content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the rest of our offerings on the channel as well. I just did a 918 support tier list earlier today, and I did the patch notes yesterday. I also stream every night starting around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we have a ton of guides, coaching sessions, and lots of other content. So be sure to check all of that out on the channel. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. So as always, I have this Google Doc linked in the description, and I'll have timestamps as well so you can jump around to your favorite parts and read along if you'd like. It's a little cheat sheet here for what I recommend in terms of runes, recommended items, and then it has a link to the wiki for you, so you can really quickly see some of the stats we're going to talk about on the page. Then I have a 1 to 5 rating system. 1 means the champion is one of the worst at whatever that task is for an AD carry, and 5 is the champion is one of the best for AD carry at whatever that task is. So first up, we have lane pressure. How likely is it the champion's going to be able to do whatever they want in the lane to exert pressure? Kill threat, how likely is the champion able to cause kills in the laning phase? Safety is how safe is the champion, particularly from ganks. Scaling is how well does the champion perform over time, and then reliability is how well or how likely is it that someone can play this champion and be successful over a long period of time. So part of that is how difficult are the decisions, how difficult are the mechanics, but it's also how well does the champion fit into the meta. Are there a lot of counter picks out there for them? Are there a lot of situations where they're not going to be as useful as other champions might be? Okay, let's go ahead and kick it off with Draven here since we got him pulled up first. Draven is almost always going to be number 1 on any kind of reasonable tier list for solo queue. And the reason is his kit is just overloaded, particularly his damage in the early game is just too much. And he snowballs so hard. He has such great potential to snowball. So I've talked about this in last videos, but you basically come to lane with a free BF sword whenever you're Draven. So you get 35 extra damage per auto if you catch those spinning axes, and then it's 65% of your bonus AD as well, which will give you about another 580 early, and then of course it scales. One of the big misconceptions about Draven is that he doesn't scale. They think he's an early game bully that just doesn't perform over time, and that's just not true. I mean, he gets 105% bonus AD on every auto attack if he's catching axes. That's basically a free crit every auto that can, like, this bonus damage doesn't crit, but the normal auto itself can crit. So it's almost like he gets a double crit. And that's why it can feel like he just completely deletes people, because he does scale extremely well with raw attack damage. Now, although this bonus damage cannot crit, it does apply lifesteal because it is physical damage. So that's why you see him rushing things like Bloodthirst or either first or second item. It's because he gets insane value out of lifesteal because he puts out so much damage. That's all physical damage that counts towards lifesteal. He also has like pretty good attack speed buff with 40% here. Not as high as some other champions out there, but it's okay. His stand aside has pretty good utility. I mean, it can stop a lot of movement out there. You know, you can stop people from jumping at you, but you can also stop other people from moving if you get really proficient at this. You know, you can hit Yumi when she's trying to jump back to her AD carry. You can hit Rakan when he's trying to go on you. That's a really important one. You know, Thresh hooks your support and is about to go in on him. You can stand aside, knock him out of that. You can knock Nautilus out of his hook, Jarvan out of his flag and drag. So there are all kinds of things you can do with this to really help your team out. And then they're slowed for 2 seconds, non-decaying. So you can just hit somebody and slow them down so you get that extra couple attacks as well. And then Whirling Death is on a fairly low cooldown, 120 seconds, and just does a ton of burst. And then, of course, if you get the kills, then you're going to be getting a lot of extra gold, too. Everybody knows that about him. But so he scales really well with items, particularly his first 2 items is usually Bloodthirster plus Infinity Edge, which are both expensive, but if he gets some kills, then he's going to get that extra gold. So he just snowballs super hard. He's very oppressive in lane. A lot of the champions that we're going to talk about that are some of the most popular champions, if we look over here, do I still have it pulled up? Yeah. If we look over here at the pick rate, what do you see here near the top of this list? Xayah, Ezreal, right? Jinx. What do these champions have in common? They're not that great early. Especially Xayah and Ezreal are not that great early. Now, Lucian is pretty good early, but he has short range, so you can still abuse him pretty well. Caitlyn can be tricky, but most people are terrible on Caitlyn. So, he has a really good matchup against these champions early, particularly the top 2, which make up about 55% of the total pick rate for champions. That means that every other game you're going to be seeing Xayah, Ezreal, and he just dumpsters them in the lane because they both want to rush tier. Kai'Sa's going to get a pickaxe if she halfway knows what she's doing, and then get tier. And if she really knows what she's doing, she's going to get a Storm Razor. But we'll talk about that here in a second. I know that's controversial. I talked about that in my patch notes video, so I'll walk you through that a little bit in a minute. But yeah, Draven just has really good matchups in this meta. There aren't many tanks out there. There are a lot of squishy champions. He has about as good of a matchup as you can get versus a lot of the assassins. I mean, Ezreal's pretty good too. We'll talk about Ezreal in a little bit against assassins, but Draven's one of the better ones because he can charge up that shield with Bloodthirster, and he just does so much burst damage. I mean, he's basically like an assassin that's an AD carry. Like, he will kill you in like a squishy champion, like Talon trying to run at him or something. He'll kill him in like 2 or 3 autos, and he has that shield to start the fight with, and he lifesteals through it. So that gives him a really big edge against a lot of the champions that are in this meta right now. So I think he's fantastic. Be sure to try him out. Now, he is difficult to play, so it's going to take a little bit of getting used to, like how to lead those axes. And you can lead the axes wherever you throw, and then whenever you move, after you throw, that's where the axe is going to land. So if you want it to land to the left a little bit, then you just throw it and move to the left, kind of as you're throwing it, and it'll go to the left. So it takes some practice, and it's kind of weird to get used to trying to steer those axes. I'm terrible at it, but really good Draven players can definitely take over. So I think he has the highest lane pressure and kill threat of any AD carry. I mean, Jhin might be kind of close to that, but I think it's mostly going to be Draven. They're both very, very good. He's not very safe. He does have the stand aside to help him out, but he doesn't have, and he does have a little bit of movement speed, but he doesn't have any dashes, and his movement speed is not as fast as some other options out there. So usually his defense is just turn around and fight. If the jungler shows up, and if he's ahead, he can turn it around in 2v3 if the support, is competent. But in general, he's going to be pretty unsafe to camps in the laning phase. His scaling is actually quite good because often he does get ahead with the gold, and his items are very heavy-hitting AD burst items, which is what you want in this meta. You don't have time to sit there auto-attacking people a million times, with the exception of a couple of champs that are good for other reasons, like Twitch, that we'll talk about here in a second. But for the most part, a lot of the top-end champions are going to do quite a bit of upfront damage. Okay, and then I like press the attack on him. Don't do Conquer. It takes way too long to stack up after the changes, but press the attack's pretty good. You can also go Klepto. That's kind of an older school build that I think is useful. It does help you get a lot of extra gold, gives you potions, gives you wards. You can continue your aggression. I've talked about that in a past video. But since I recommended that maybe like half a year ago or so when I started recommending Klepto, they have nerfed the inspiration trees. They nerfed biscuits pretty hard, and they've nerfed boots pretty hard. So, you're running light on options in the inspiration tree. So that's why I think press the attack's really the way to go. And mostly you're getting that because your third attack is going to do extra burst damage. It does help you out some with tanks if there's anyone crazy enough to play a tank in this meta. And it can help your team out a little bit with tanks. But it's mostly just for that extra burst. They're probably going to be dead by the third hit anyways, but if they're not, press the attack's going to make sure they're dead. And then just Triumph so that you get those resets, get that healing. Bloodline for even more lifesteal, because remember, he gets the lifesteal bonus off of his Q. Coup de grace, and then Footwear and Biscuits. So Footwear and Biscuits are still okay. I know I was just talking about how they were nerfed. But they're still okay. It's just going Klepto, and losing out on press the attack so that you can get Footwear and Biscuits, and then, Cosmic Insight or something. It just doesn't feel that good as Draven. Other options, and these are things that people haven't done a ton, but that I think could be good. I don't think Dravens are doing these, but would be something like Taste of Blood, and then one of the Hunters. I don't know, maybe Relentless Hunter or something like that. Let me just check kind of high elo Draven play roll here. I didn't look at Draven. Yeah, and then some people are going Absolute Focus, Gathering Storm. I don't like Gathering Storm right now. I think it's too slow. I think this meta is really fast. And Alacrity is good. The attack speed is good, but I still think that Bloodline is good. I mean, maybe Bloodthirster's good enough, and you don't need Bloodline if you're going to rush Bloodthirster. If you're going to rush Infinity Edge, then I would definitely have Bloodline. But if you're going Bloodthirster, I guess you can go Legend Alacrity. So Draven is not that great in really high elo a lot of times because he does get camped, he does get punished. But as you can see, I mean, the Klepto is still on the front page at least. There's still quite a few people trying it out. Different people too. It's not just the same guy, although a lot of those people are Sven. Let's be honest. Okay, it's mostly Sven. But there are a couple other people trying it out as well. What does he go for his secondary? Okay, Overheal and then Alacrity. So basically what I just talked about is Klepto, Boots, Biscuits, and then I guess he goes Time Warp Tonic instead. This does net you a lot of extra gold because every time you turn on your Axe or every time you use Bloodthirster or Blood Rush, then you can go in, get that hit, retreat, you know, wait for the Klepto cooldown, go back in, get that hit, retreat. So you can keep that up and you can mine a lot of extra gold with that. It doesn't look like Zven's been winning a ton with it. He's been winning some. So you can try it out. It is a lot of fun. You know, the potions do give you even more sustain, extra wards, extra little flask things that give you bonus AD. So it does have some potential, but I think PTA is a little more reliable. That looks weird. What does Arrow do it? Okay, so some people are going the Absolute Focus, Gathering Storm. Yeah, nobody's really going the Domination second. So, I mean, I guess, yeah, just something in Sorcery. Maybe it is. Maybe it is just Absolute Focus plus Gathering Storm. You don't need the mana. I mean, you could go Nullifying Orb. I guess this just gives you a bit of an insurance policy. Or you can go the Boots Biscuits. You know, once again, that's pretty popular too. If we look here, Boots Biscuits. So, it probably depends a little bit on the matchup. And if you think the game's going to go long, if you have, like, some weak lanes, weak solo lanes, maybe you can go for Gathering Storm, but I would probably just go for the early game aggression, and Biscuits rather help you out with that a little bit more, just because it kind of doubles down on the sustain, and then Boots save you some money so that you can complete your second item faster. But anyways, okay, let's go ahead and move on. I don't want this to be too long. I'm trying to do these videos a little bit faster, but still be thorough. Okay, Xayah did just get nerfed, but I still think that she's extremely good, and part of this is because Rakan is the best support right now, I think, at pretty much every ELO bracket. Am I biased? Probably a little bit, but I think I'm pretty honest, too, about, you know, Rakan. I think he just has so much potential. You know, he's the most picked, most banned in pro support. Now, once again, everyone's not a pro player, but, you know, I think there's evidence that he's still pretty good in solo queue. Like, yeah, his win rate's not the highest, but a lot of the champions that are really good in solo queue don't have the highest win rates, right? So things like Irelia, Akali, Sylas, you know, these 1v9, like, super strong champions aren't going to be at the very top of the list because they're hard to play. And, you know, the average person without much practice is not going to do that well on them. I think Rakan is the same way, but I think if you put the time in, he can be really good. He is strong. He is actually pretty popular, too, I think. Get my charts mixed up here. Here we go. So if you look at support popularity, he's up there. You know, he's the 4th most popular. So you're going to be seeing a lot of Rakan. So I think that, you know, having Xayah in your repertoire is pretty good. She did just get some decent nerfs this patch. The 3 armor doesn't really matter. If you're against a double AD lane, you know, maybe. But I think that losing the 3 AD is not that big of a, or the 3 armor rather, is not that big of a deal. It's like you basically take like 3% more damage in the laning phase. So yeah, if their whole team is AD, maybe it matters in some cases, but you know, there might be some cases where you'd walk away with 30 health and instead you die. But I think that doesn't matter. The bigger concern is the 20 extra seconds on Featherstorm is going to leave you a lot more vulnerable over time, so you have to be a lot more careful with how you're using that. You do usually rush Essence Reaver first, so, you know, that mitigates a little bit of that, but in general, you know, you need to be careful on her. So I really like Essence Reaver, Rapid Fire Cannon, Infinity Edge on her. I think that's probably the strongest build. Some people are just going straight Essence Reaver into Infinity Edge. Pull her up here real quick. And the main reason for that is she scales super well with raw AD. And that's something a lot of people really underestimate. I think so many people just go straight to Zeal, like a Zeal item. And some people even still do double Zeal. And that's really bad on champions like Rakan and like Draven because they have such like great benefit from raw AD. So Draven with his axes scales super hard off of AD. So you want to get the double big items on him, the Bloodthirster, Infinity Edge. And then Xayah's mixed. She's not as hardcore on the rush double AD, but you do want double AD items in your first 3 items for sure. So pretty much like I said is what most people build Rapid Fire Cannon. Now Rapid Fire is just really handy because it gives you that first hit early. It allows you to, you know, just make a play at a safe distance to start off a fight. Gives you some extra burst damage up front. So that's really handy. And then, you know, you do need attack speed also because putting those feathers down is really important, obviously. So you just want to get as many feathers on the ground as you can so that you can rip them back and do a ton of damage in team fights. But she does scale super well with raw AD and with critical strike because of her E, the Blade Caller. So it has a pretty good AD ratio. Remember, this is per feather. Now, yes, it does have some diminishing returns, but it does a lot of damage. And then it also scales with critical strike. It's one of the only abilities in the game that also scales with crit. There are a couple others, obviously, but there are not many because it does a lot of damage. So when you get AD plus crit, then you're doing a lot of damage. So that's why she does it. In addition to, you know, just your normal auto attacks, like normal crits. That's why people go double heavy AD crit on her, is because of that. So I think she's really solid. Obviously very good with her con. Gets a lot of extra, you know, allows her con to jump around more, but then also has, you know, really nice buff that she can give her con on his autos. They're the most aggressive, most powerful lane in the bottom lane by far. Like, they can kill you level 1, they can kill you level 2. They're extremely strong. There's a reason that they are usually broken up in pro, and if you see a team that gets both Xayah and Rakan, it's probably lights out. Even after all the nerfs to both those champs, they're still really good. There's a reason they have the last 2 world skins. Have they been nerfed? Yes, but are they still good? Absolutely. So I think she's very good right now. I think that she's a nice mixture of being able to apply pressure to some of these early, like really weak early game champions like Xayah and Ezreal that have these tier builds. So she can apply pressure to them early, but then she also has really, really good team fighting. Some of the best team fighting in the game with the combination of her Deadly Plumage plus Blade Caller with the feathers. Just does a ton of damage, and she's relatively safe with Featherstorm against a lot of assassins. And she can do really, really high burst as well with Featherstorm with all the Blade Callers. I mean, if you do like clean cuts, you open up with clean cuts, you get 3 auto attacks in there. That's 3 daggers, and then they get close to you. They try to close the gap. You Featherstorm, you know, that throws 5 more on the ground and rip them all back. That's going to one-shot most people, especially in a meta where there aren't many tanks. Now, she's not amazing against tanks. She's okay. She can actually kite them out pretty well with her W, and then getting the root off of Blade Caller can be helpful. But she doesn't have any percentage damage. She doesn't have true damage. She doesn't take Conquer or anything like that. So she's a little bit weaker against tanks than some of the other options out there, like Xayah, who does percentage damage. But she's still going to be really, really good in a lot of situations. So I think she's really strong. You got to practice her. You got to get proficient with her. She's one of the harder AD carries to play. So you got to get the geometry right on your feathers and just kind of have a really good sense of how much damage she's going to do. But overall, she's really strong. She's just kind of a much better version of Kalista, sort of, where it's like you kind of do this delayed damage every auto attack. You're not sticking them with the spears, but you're kind of sticking those feathers on the ground. But one of the big differences between her and Kalista is that she also can crit, and she gets real AD. She doesn't just stack attack speed, and she hasn't been nerfed into the dirt like Kalista has been. So that's a good way to think of her. Now, she doesn't have quite the mobility, but it's just in terms of the delayed damage, I think that's a pretty good comparison. And it's much easier for her to hit multiple people than it is for Kalista. Once Kalista gets Hurricane, she can get multiple people. But anyways, I think she's kind of like the new age Kalista that's pretty strong in her own way. So yeah, try her out. She's very good right now, even after the nerfs. You just have to be a little bit more careful. You know, play around your cooldowns a little bit better. But, I mean, she can still kill people without her ult. Like, it's not completely necessary for her to get kills. If you have a really good engage from your support, who's like a Rakan or a Xayah, you may not even need it. You know, you just use your W, like, just cast Q really quick, get a few auto attacks down, and then Blade Caller, and they're probably dead. So, the R is nice, but it's not, like, 100% incremental for a lot of the encounters that you're going to have out there. It's a nice luxury, but you can still get kills without it. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. So, next up is Ashe. Now, this might surprise some people. I've been a critic of Ashe just about forever, but there is a new build that I think works really well. Unfortunately, a lot of Ashes don't use that build. I mean, it's been around for a few months, but I think some more and more people are starting to figure out that it's pretty good. And I really prefer this build a lot, and you can probably guess what it's going to be. It's going to be the Comet build with Trinity Force. And I've researched this and looked this up a bit more, and I've actually played with Ashes that go with this build, and I think it's extremely good for a lot of reasons. The main thing is it covers a lot of the weaknesses that Ashe has had historically, I think, because people do not itemize Ashe correctly at all for solo queue. So what do I mean by that? I have a whole Ashe guide out there as well, so be sure to check that out. I don't know if I have it linked in the description or not. Maybe I'll go back and link it. I don't have it linked, but check it out. It's under the guides on the main channel. I think I made it probably half a year ago or so, but it's still really relevant, really good guide. I think, if I do say so myself. But I think it breaks down a lot of the stuff that people don't understand about her. So first of all, Blade of the Ruined King is not a good item on Ashe. That's the number one thing you need to understand for solo queue. Why do people get it in pro? Because in pro, there's a lot more team fights. That's what it comes down to. Because when you have Blade of the Ruined King plus Hurricane, if you're actually hitting 3 targets, and all of those bolts are applying Hurricane, or applying Blade of the Ruined King, then she's going to be pretty good. Okay? So you're going to have more damage off of Blade of the Ruined King plus Hurricane if it's a 3-person fight, especially if there's at least 1 tank involved. But you're going to do more damage off of Critical Strike, like Infinity Edge plus Hurricane, against single targets. And so there are a couple things to solo queue. Number one, clean 5v5 team fights are very rare. Most people are spread out. Most fights start off with someone getting caught. Ashe is able to force catches with her ult if people are out of position. And so it's just very clowny right now. There's a lot of clown fiesta, and you need upfront damage. Remember what I was talking about earlier with Xayah and Draven. Upfront damage is really what you want in this meta, because a lot of times it's not going to be Sejuani running at you, it's going to be Eve running at you. Okay, so you need to kill her quickly before she gets you. You're not going to have time to kite her. She's going to jump on you. Every champion and their mother has some kind of jump these days. Everybody's got mobility, so the only way that you deal with that is just kill them. So that's something that's different, you know, in solo queue from pro. Is, you know, it's not uncommon to see, you know, like Kayn jungle, Talon, AD carry, and Pyke support. Or Talon middle and Pyke support. It would be unusual to see Talon AD carry. But like 2 or sometimes even 3 assassins, like squishy champions with high mobility that do a ton of damage in games. And so you need to be able to take care of that quickly. So that's basically why Blade is bad. Also, people are not playing a lot of heavy poke champions in the bot lane. There are some, but if you look at like some of the most popular supports right now, you know, these are all-in champions. You know, we're not seeing, you know, a lot of Xeraths and Vel'Kozes and Misfortune supports, and we're not even seeing things like Sona up that high. I mean, Lux is still there, but she's much lower. You know, if we're just looking at pick rate, you're playing against Thresh, you're playing against Pyke, Nautilus, Rakan, Leona, even Morgana to an extent is an all-in champion, so you don't need sustain. These champions are not going to poke you. You don't need Blade of the Ruined King. The thing is, Blade feels really nice because it feels nice to have lifesteal, but it comes at a price. When you just think about it, when you're getting lifesteal, you are sacrificing your damage for the sake of healing. Like, you're not going to do as much damage straight up because it's budgeted. Like, it costs a certain amount of gold for lifesteal. I don't remember what it is. I think it might be like, I mean, I could look at Vamp Scepter, but it's a lot. You're paying a lot for it. So you just don't go Blade of the Ruined King. It feels nice. It has really good components. You know, it's got daggers and mostly daggers, and a couple of longswords mixed in there. Like, it feels good, but it's really a trap. Because you don't need the sustain, because the meta does not require sustain. Also, something that people don't understand about Ashe a lot of times, I think, is that Ranger's focus, when you have that flurry, when you like attack 5 times really quickly or whatever, 4 times really quickly, people, I think they think that triggers Blade of the Ruined King. It does not. It's a special case scenario because it does not trigger on-hit effects. It'll actually say it if you press the show under abilities here. It actually says it does not trigger on-hit effects. Multi-attack is similar, except that on-hit effects aren't applied. So it's not like Lucian. It does trigger Cleaver because that's physical damage, not on hit. So that's why it does trigger Cleaver stacks. But it does not, Flurry does not give you multiple hits on Blade of the Ruined King. Now, Ruined's Hurricane, those bolts do trigger on hit, so that does count. And Hurricane does split into 5 different arrows to do extra damage as well. So it has no interaction with Ranger's focus. It doesn't interact with anything in her kit. Okay? And you already have a slow. Like, that's Ashe's thing, is you have Frost Shot, you have a slow. So using Blade of the Ruined King, yes, it does apply a bigger slow, but they don't stack. Right? So you're wasting part of your passive by going for that. And she scales really well with crit because you get an extra 1% damage per 1% crit that you would have had. So she doesn't actually crit. She does a critical slow whenever she would normally crit, which once again is going to be like a triple slow, which is going to be even bigger than Blade of the Ruined King, I believe. So then the Blade's active is just really not doing anything at all if you get a critical slow, other than transferring a little bit of health. Does it even... It does a flat 100 damage. It doesn't even transfer health. Yeah, it's just really, really bad. It doesn't make a lot of sense unless you're up against a ton of tanks. Blade of the Ruined King's going to get a lot of value, and you're going to be hitting at least 3 people in most fights with the bolts. Not happening in solo queue. Okay, so what's the new build? How do you do this? It's, first off, Essence Reaver. So Essence Reaver is super good on Ashe for a lot of reasons. The main reason is it's heavy AD and heavy crit. Just like the other champs we just talked about, Ashe wants AD and crit. Why? Because she has this critical strike scaling here. Now, she doesn't have insane scaling on AD, but kind of. I mean, each one of these arrows, she does get 125% of her total AD gets converted on to each auto attack whenever she has Flurry active. So she does scale pretty well with AD here. And the crit scales right here. So it's pretty good. It does add up. Also, volley is 100% of your AD. So when you have more raw AD, yeah, she actually does scale really well with AD. I take that back. So the Q does scale and the W does scale 100% and 125%. So she really, really wants AD. So Zeal items aren't going to be doing it that well, okay? She needs AD. She's super hungry for AD, and Critical Strike is also really good. Essence Reaver gives both of those, and it gives 20% on the ult, because what's one of the main things about Ashe? Her arrow, right? It's on a fairly low cooldown. Anytime you hit this arrow, somebody should be dying. So it's really good engage. There are a lot of champions. Yes, support does have nice engage, but most other roles don't have very good engage right now, because people are just playing assassins everywhere. But people do have really high burst damage in most roles, so they may not have a lot of CC, but if you can CC someone, they're going to blow them up. So that Talon can get in there and delete them, or Zed, or Kiana, or Akali, or you know, Kha'Zix, or just whoever else that's super popular, does a ton of damage. Virtually everybody in the meta, in the jungle, and the solo roles fits that description. And yeah, Enchanted Arrow allows you to make plays. Now, I will say, do not throw this across the map. All right, do it like at a reasonable distance. You know, fire on somebody who's like within 1,000 range of you, so that you have a high percentage shot. Because if the enemy sees you throw this across the map, you might have like a 5% chance to hit it, maybe. And yeah, it feels really cool if you hit it. You're like, yes, you know, a ton of damage, right? It's awesome. But most of the time you're gonna miss. And when they see you fire this out bottom lane, you know, if they're paying attention at all, they're going to know, okay, you don't have one of your big cooldowns. Now I'm going to go kill you. So it's really, really bad to fire it across map, because you're just not going to hit it, and you're going to be really vulnerable for the next minute and a half. And good enemies will exploit that. So that's really handy, but just keep that in mind, you know, to fire it close. So CDR is very, very good, because this ult should be a kill every time. She's one of the few, like, meta AD carries that has engage. You know, Varus has engaged too, but he's pretty far out of the meta because he just got wrecked by a lot of the changes to, most notably Gensu's. I mean, he's still, like, you can kind of play him, but he's not that great right now. And then you also want your volley cooldown pretty low, because this does heavy damage. I mean, 4 seconds, but it does 100% of your AD plus 80. So if you have, like, 200 AD, it's 280, and it can hit multiple targets. So it's really, really good. So CDR is great, Critical Strike is great, AD is great. Okay. Most people are on board with that. It's easy to understand. It's great. Now, what about Trinity Force? Why are people going Trinity Force on Ashe? And this is something that is becoming increasingly common. Now, some people still are holdouts and they go for the old build at like higher elo brackets. But you still see people going for Trinity. Even at kind of the highest brackets where Blade of the Ruined King would have the most value. Look at this. Essence Reaver, 80% purchased. Trinity Force, 54% purchased. Blade of the Ruined King, 14% purchased. So we do see some blades here. But even in the meta, like high elo meta, where blades should be really good in theory, where people are going to play more tanks, where people are going to team fight more, you know, it seems like it would be better where people are going to play less assassins. But still, people are doing it. And Comet is a rune we'll talk about in a second that fits in with this build. But why is this? What's up with Trinity Force? Why are people doing this? Okay. A few main reasons here that are obvious and a few that are not so obvious. So number one, 20% cooldown reduction. Okay, so that's going to give you 40% cooldown reduction when you get that, and that means that you're going to have just a ton of arrows. Just every time you just kill somebody, push in a wave back, by the time you get back to lane, arrow's going to be up again, kill them again, just rinse and repeat. You know, it's awesome to have that much CDR on Ashe. Okay, also gives you attack damage and attack speed. Okay, so pretty good. Attack speed, decent stat on Ashe. You do like to attack, but, you know, not as great as it would be if you were going for like a lethal tempo build. But still okay. Gives you flat attack damage, move speed. Really nice. You can kite people really well with your slow off your auto attacks and your W. So having that move speed is pretty good. Okay, now it gets a little more interesting. Basic attacks grant a flat 20 movement speed. This is really important because you already slow, so things that apply an additional slow, like Blather and King, are not going to be as valuable. But things that actually speed you up are really valuable because that synergizes so well with your slow. Because you're sped up, they're slowed down, so you're getting double value out of that, effectively. And the main thing that I didn't really know about until I looked this up on forums, apparently your passive applies to Jhin hits. Now, I don't know why exactly that is, and I don't think that's been hotfixed. Let me see if that's been hotfixed, because the forum I was reading was from, like, July. And I haven't tested this with dummies. Hawk model, more frosty. Okay, new visual effects. Cooldown reduced on 9/12. That's when she got popular. Yeah, she hasn't been touched since 9/12, so it still should be in effect. But and I took down the forum post here to look at it. But basically, people were explaining to me that the passive, whenever you get crit, then the crit scaling off of this passive, this applies to Jhin. Slowing them by such and such for 2 seconds and causing subsequent basic attacks against them to deal this much bonus damage. So Jhin is an on-hit effect. So maybe this applies to on-hits. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to say it here or not. It says Runan's bolts will deal increased damage from Frost Shot. Okay, so it says this does extra damage from Frost Bolts, and then it says additional bolts will not deal additional damage on critical strikes. Okay, so the extra bolts, the bolts themselves can crit, I guess, but the crit doesn't modify the extra damage. So basically, a Runan Bolt does deal the extra frost damage, but the bonus damage cannot crit, although the normal bolt, I suppose, can crit. Frost Shot's base 10% bonus damage is not affected by critical strike modifiers. Frost Shot's damage is reduced by Runan's Omen. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So it reduces critical strikes, but since Ashe can't crit, then it just reduces. So I guess that Randuin's is very good against Ashe, FYI. But yeah, so Jhin proc does scale with this. So you basically, like, if you get up a lot of crit, you know, you get 50% crit, then the Jhin proc also does 50%. The Trinity also does 50%. So if you have, like, 100 base damage, and with Trinity, you auto attack, it should do 300 bonus damage off the Trinity proc, and then that gets modified by this to do an additional, if you have 50% crit, to do an additional 60% damage. Right, so that'd take you to about like 460, 470 damage off that Jhin proc. So that's a lot, you know, off of a Jhin proc, in addition to just your normal auto attack that's also going to be doing, you know, this extra damage. So yeah, the Jhin proc would do... I'm trying to remember if you do your normal damage and then the Jhin proc on top of that. I think your auto attack is modified by the Jhin. Let me see how this is worded here. Deals bonus damage equal to 200% base attack damage on hit. Okay, so your normal deals bonus physical damage. Okay, so it deals normal damage and bonus damage. So if you have 100, if you have like just 100 AD, and that's your base AD. You have no other AD, which would be weird, but just for simple math, your Sheen proc would do 460, and then you would normally do an extra 100 on top of that. So it'd do like 560, and then if you had like, that's if you have 50% critical strike, and then you would do 50% more damage on your normal attack, which would do an extra 50. So that'd do like, what, like 600 damage? It's a hell of a lot of damage. That's the basic thing, is that's what's broken about it, and that's what a lot of people don't understand, and I didn't understand that either until I read like 4 or 5 different forum posts to kind of confirm this. But that's how it works for some reason, is that Sheen does hundreds and hundreds of extra damage depending on how much critical strike you have with Ashe's passive. And so that's a really, really big deal, and you can get Sheen early as well. So you can take advantage of that. So when you get Essence Reaver and then you get your Sheen early while you're building up to Trinity, then your Sheen's still going to be benefiting from that basically 30% extra damage on the Sheen procs, because you're going to get 20% for having 20% crit, and then it has a baseline 10% as well. It also does refund your mana, so don't forget about that, so you can spam your W a lot more. So that's really, really handy. So that's why, is that she does a hell of a lot of burst damage because of the way that that Sheen proc interacts with her passive. Gives you movement speed, gives you a lot of stats that you want, gives you the 40% CDR. Is it expensive? A lot of people are like, oh, it's too expensive. It's like, well, Infinity Edge is 3,400, Essence Reaver is 3,300. This is 37. But keep in mind, all of these components are good, or most of them are good. Stinger's kind of not amazing on her, but it's all right. But like Phage, very good, especially Sheen, really, really strong with Essence Reaver. So it's not like you're getting these dinky components that suck, you know, like you're getting good stuff off of Trinity. So that's what I really recommend. And then going for this Comet build is what a lot of people are doing as well early. And a big part of that is that you're going to be spamming your W in the laning phase, and every time your W hit, it applies a slow. And then you also get this extra 30 to 100 damage, and it applies Frost. So that when you go up and auto attack, they're already primed with Frost. I believe it applies Frost, right? It applies critical slow to enemies, actually. So it's Frost plus critical slow. So they're going to be super slowed. So the Comet's definitely going to hit them. And that means that you can walk up and already start getting these bonus auto attacks. You get your Sheen proc right away with that bonus damage. So otherwise, you have to attack them first. And then you have to, and then you get the bonus damage. So just spamming that W out just does a ton of damage, because you're going to be getting a big AD item first instead of Blather and King. Then the W is going to get 100% value out of that. So it's just super handy. Allows you to spam abilities. Comet does a lot of damage. Comet also has a 0.35 AP or 0.35 ratio on it, so it actually scales pretty well with AD. And then as you hit people with abilities, champion hit with an ability, hurls Comet at their location, and reduces the remaining cooldown if Comet is on cooldown. So you're going to hit a lot of people with W. Now, I don't know if you hit multiple people, if you get multiple like cooldown reductions on it. So I think that would count as an area of effect, your W. I'm pretty sure it would. So if you hit like 3 people with it, you could get 30% cooldown reduction with that. But the main thing is it just gives a lot of poke, allows you to soften people up, kite better, allows you to take mana flow ban to give you that extra mana, which is really good. It just opens up a lot of rune paths that you may not have. So it allows you to get Transcendence for even more CDR, which converts over to AD later on, and then Scorch gives you more poke as well. So it's just really nice. And the big thing is, and I've been talking about Ashe forever, I gotta hurry up, but this is one of the newer ones that I really, really wanted to talk about the build with, is that it turns you into a very aggressive aggro laner, because you have 600 range, you can poke easily, so you just hit them with your W, then walk up, land that auto for the bonus damage. So she's really aggressive. She can punish the Kaisa, she can punish the Ezreal, just does a ton of damage, especially, you're not going to get Sheen early because you're going to be getting Essence Reaver first, but it's still just really, really good. So it turns her into a lane bully, soften people up, get them ready for that all-in whenever you have your ult. So I think that has completely revolutionized the way that she plays, because traditionally if you go like lethal tempo plus Blather and King and Hurricane, you're just not doing that much damage, especially to single targets. You know, a lot of other champions are just going to out-damage you early, and that build just doesn't do anything early game. Like, attack speed really doesn't matter early if you don't have the crit and the AD to back it up. Lethal tempo is just not that great early game. And it's a very early game centric meta, so try out this build with Ashe. I think it's actually legit. I thought it was pretty troll, you know, when it first came out back in like April or May or whatever. But the more that I've seen people doing it, the more that I've kind of theory crafted it, I think it actually does fit in really, really well with this meta. Now, once again, if they're running a lot of tanks, if they for some reason have like 3 tanks, yeah, maybe like Blather and King plus Hurricane might be a little better if you're going to be team fighting against tanks the whole time. But if, like most games, they have 2 or 3 assassins and you have Ashe locked, this is probably a better build. Now, Hawkshot is also really amazing. Don't forget with Hawkshot, it sees everything that it goes over. So don't just throw it where you want to see, throw it further. It can go across the whole map. So one really nice thing is if you just position it correctly, and I talk about this in the Ashe guide, so watch that. But if you position it correctly, you can fly it over the entire enemy jungle and not only try to like find the jungler, but you can get the cooldowns on the camps. And that's going to help your jungler out tremendously, and that's going to help you out tremendously to understand their route and where they're going to be going. Okay? So make sure you're using that Hawkshot. Don't just throw a shallow Hawkshot in the river or like the tri-bush or something to see if somebody's there. Throw it across their entire jungle and see how many different camps you can catch. Right? It'll still see them if they're in the tri-bush. It'll still see them if they're in the river. But now you're actually going to give your team much more valuable information. And it pings them. If it spots anybody, it pings them. That's something that they changed a long time ago. So just throw it over there. It'll ping out the jungler or anyone else that's there for your team. So just really, really take advantage of that Hawkshot. It's very, very useful. So anyways, that's it for Ashe. Give her a try. I think she's very strong, but we got to move on here. Jhin, pretty standard. I've been saying he's been quite good for a while. Now everyone's all of a sudden on the Jhin bandwagon. They have given him a couple of buffs, but it's pretty much the same deal as a lot of these other champs that we've said early, and that's just they punish Ezreal and Xayah really hard in the laning phase because he has so much upfront damage. Now, I think a lot of people are going Essence Reaver, Infinity Edge on him, so once again, AD crit items early, you're noticing a trend, hopefully. Going basically Essence Reaver plus Infinity Edge, at least 2 of those in your first 3 items. Now, some people might fit in a rapid fire cannon after either Essence Reaver or Infinity first, but ultimately those are going to be the items that you want. So yeah, it looks like a lot of people start with Infinity and then Rapid and then Essence Reaver. Some people are starting Essence Reaver though. It just depends. I mean, Infinity is going to give you the most burst damage you can get. So you probably want Infinity. You don't need the mana regen that much on this. The CDR is okay. What you're really paying for is the attack damage and the critical strike. And I think, you know, they changed this around enough. I think they gave it 5 extra AD. You know, they changed it around enough to where I would rather have, you know, 20% CDR and the mana regen than 10 attack damage. So, but it's up to you. Some people might go multiple Infinity Edges, but I'd rather have the extra utility off of this because I think it's good enough to where I'd want the utility. But anyways, yeah, same deal. A lot of pressure early, puts out a ton of damage, has really good follow-up CC with his W. You know, if your Leona engages or your Nautilus or whatever, he has the burst damage to finish them off while they're CC'd. He can chain CC him with the W. They did give the W, I believe, what was it, like 0.25 extra root duration? Yeah. So that actually ends up being quite a bit. I believe you max this second. The cooldown was also reduced to 12 seconds. So that does help him out quite a bit. They did something with his traps, too, at some point. So his traps last longer, and they come up a little bit faster as you put more points into it, but usually you don't put more points into it. And the final shot on Curtain Call also does more missing health. So they've done all of that, like, in the last, 10 patches or so. They've buffed him a few different times, so. Anyways, but I think it's... and they gave him 2 AD also, don't forget that. But it's mostly just a product of the meta right now in that people aren't playing tanks. He's not that great against tanks because he attacks really slowly and he doesn't have like any percentage-based damage or true damage or anything like that outside of like his 4th shot does percentage missing health, but he's not good against those type of champs. But he is very good, kind of like Draven, at blowing up squishies that are coming at him. So you got Evelynn running at you and, you know, you've got your 4th shot and your grenade primed, you might just be able to one-shot her, you know, if you've got a couple of crit items. So he just does a ton of upfront burst damage, and that's exactly what you want against squishies, and he comes online really quickly. He does a lot of damage off of no items, then he really does a ton of damage once you get Infinity Edge. So he's got a super powerful 1-item power spike. He's a bully in lane. He's got great CC with his W to follow up on the enemy. He's got pretty nice movement speed once you get enough crit with Swifties. You actually can run people down or kite people fairly well. Then, of course, he's got his ult, which can help, you know, finish off if someone's just barely escaping, because people do that a lot with the million dashes they have these days. You can gun them down with your ult. So I think he's got a lot of utility. He's pretty strong, so I just go with Fleet, Triumph, Bloodline, Coup de Grace, Footwear, Biscuits. Now, I think there are some people that are going back towards Dark Harvest again. It's still mostly Fleet. And the reason is you just really need that movement speed to help you out until you can get more critical strike in your build. And it does give you some sustain because you're not going to build any sustain whatsoever. Once again, sustain doesn't matter that much in this meta because you're going to be facing like Leonas and Nautiluses the whole time. But it's nice. The extra movement speed does matter. And when you have Rapid Fire Cannon, which is what you're going to get second, your attacks become energized 25% faster. That means you're going to get your Fleet proc 25% faster, and you're going to get that extra movement speed. So it doesn't sound like a lot, 20% for 1 second, but it definitely does add up. So I think that's why people go Fleet. You can go Dark. I guess you'd go, what, Dark, Taste of Blood, Eyeball Collection, Ravenous Hunter, and then just like Bloodline for the sustain, and then Coup de Grace. So I could see that happening. It does add even more pressure. I know Firewall did a video that said this is becoming more popular. Sadie, no. Firewall said this is becoming more popular in Korea right now, again, because the early game, Dark Harvest is not a super early game rune, but it does do damage. You know, Fleet doesn't do any damage. So, you know, bursting out people is definitely becoming more popular, especially with all these squishies. So you can still go for that build if you want. That's not what most people are doing, at least according to pro builds, but more and more people are, like, testing it out. So give it a whirl if you like it. Maybe especially if they don't have any poke and you can really bully them. You know, it's like a Kaisa plus, I don't know, Rakan or something in lane. You know, maybe try that out. See if you do the extra damage. It could be pretty handy. But yeah, the standard's still going to be Fleet. And then just Swiftness, Essence Reaver, Infinity Edge, Rapid Fire Cannon. If you're really far ahead, I think you can go both of these before you get Rapid Fire. Like that's what he did right here, Kramer, because he was 7-0. And you'll see that with some builds. This guy did it too. He was 8-1. So if you're super far ahead, you can just get the big ticket items. But if it's just kind of like you're doing all right, but you're kind of balling on a little bit of a budget, then I think getting that Rapid Fire in there can be a nice sort of stopgap because it's a lot cheaper. It's only, I think, 2,700 gold instead of the 3,300 for Essence Reaver. Anyways, okay, so that's enough of Jhin. Still really strong. If you like Jhin, this is a great meta for him. It has been a good meta for him for a long time, but people are just starting to figure this out. It's also helpful that people are building tier on Kaisa now, so that's another person that you can bully out hard early. Okay, Twitch. Okay, so Twitch is kind of a weird one because he's sort of the opposite of the profile of those first four that I talked about because he's not that great early. However, you know, he kind of comes at the Kaisa Ezreal meta a little bit differently because, yeah, he's not going to be able to hard punish them early, although I would say he can still duel them. Like, if he stacks up that poison, if you get a Leona that engages, he throws a flask on him, and then he stacks that poison. He actually can do quite a bit of burst. It just takes him a couple of auto attacks. But if your support engages and you do get that poison stacked, you can do quite a bit of burst in the early game. But if you're just sitting there, you're walking up to Draven and just trying to trade autos with him out of nowhere, that's a really bad idea. But, you know, if your team has CC, then the auto attacks definitely do add up pretty quickly. But Twitch is almost always lurking around tier 1 or tier 2, pretty much on any serious tier list. And he just has qualities that other AD carries don't have that are really, really good. The big one is invisibility. So this gets underestimated all the time, especially in lower elo brackets. People just do not respect the Twitch invisibility. You know, and so that means if you get ahead, it is so easy to snowball because you can just go to any of the side lanes, just pop up, murder somebody, it resets your invisibility, and then just like skitter away. So he basically can turn into an assassin, and guess what? There are a lot of squishies in every role. So if you're constantly sneaking up and, you know, you're getting the first couple of hits, you can very easily delete people before they have a chance to fight back. So he's really, really good at the Clown Fiesta skirmish, particularly with like Yumi or Eve or like other invisible champions. You can get an invisibility squad going on, or just any other globals. You know, if you have like a Shin or something that can ult you while you're invisible, or like a Galio. You know, those champions aren't like super popular right now, but there are certainly some combinations where he's really good, but he's also pretty good on his own. And then he has really huge like AoE damage off of his spray and pray. And people forget this has massive, massive range. It's 850 range. It's 300 bonus range plus 550, so 850 range. That's like almost tower attack range. And the biggest mistake that I see Twitches do is they try to open up like within 300 range off of invisibility because they're very greedy. They want to still be able to kill you even if you flash. But the problem is if they open up close like that, they can get engaged on and killed. You know, Twitch is very squishy. His escapes are really limited. He doesn't have dashes. He just relies on kind of seeing somebody coming and then going invisible and running away in the landing phase. Pyke is another one who can do invisibility squad with him. But yeah, so use that max range, use that 850. Do not fire through minions also. Remember, anything that he fires through, including minions, reduces the damage by 20% per target. Okay, multiplicative. So it goes down, you know, not exactly 20, but it goes from 100 to 80 to 64 to 51.2, blah, blah, blah. Whatever that table is right there. Okay? But it's a lot less damage. So I see a lot of rookie Twitches also, you know, they'll come in invisible, and they'll open up through a minion wave and try to hit an enemy. If you are, you get 20 bonus AD off of this. So if you have 20 or 100 flat AD when you're level 6, you get 20 bonus off of this. That'd be 120 AD. If you actually hit somebody through a minion wave and you hit 2 minions, you're only doing 64% of that damage. You're only doing 60 damage. Even if you're getting an 80% reduction, you'd still only be doing, I don't know what that math is off the top of my head, like 1/5 of 160 is like 80%. You'd still be probably doing more damage than if you turned it on. But this is one ability where you can literally do less damage for activating it. Like, actually less damage against a single target than if you just normally auto-attacked him. So if you fire through 2 minions, you'd be better off just opening up and not even pressing ult and just auto-attacking them. Because you're actually doing less damage. You're doing 64% of the total damage. So instead of doing 120, or doing the 100 you would normally do, then you're only going to be doing like 65 or 70 damage. So just keep that in mind. Do not shoot through minions. Okay, but in team fights, he can shoot through everyone in a team fight, and that's really strong. It also does apply Blather and King to everybody, and it can crit. So getting Blade with him is super good early on, because he does need some kind of sustain. Typically, even against like, you know, hard engage lanes, it's helpful, and he gets a lot of benefit out of that because of the spray and pray applying the Blade to everybody. And when he's sneaking up on people, having that nice slow, he doesn't have a lot of slows in his kit. He's got, like, Venom Flash, but that's it. So having that nice slow on somebody so you can keep running them down after they flash with your ult can potentially be useful. And it lifesteals everyone that it hits as well. So it's really good. So you just want to go Blather and King, Hurricane, Infinity Edge. And that's the best thing to do. Because then those Hurricane bolts can all crit. They'll hit everyone off of your ult. They'll also apply Blather and King. And your ult itself will apply Blather and King. So people could potentially get hit by 2 Blather and King hits every time you auto-attack. Each person can get hits. You can get, like, just tons, like a dozen hits off of Blather and King in a fight when you have Hurricane. So it's very, very strong. And he scales super well. So the reason you would play him against Ezreal or Xayah is you just say, okay, you guys want to sit there and get your cute little tier and farm up? I can play that. And then you're just going to outscale him. Because once Twitch gets like 2 items, he's so difficult to stop. And like 3 items, he just keeps going. He's very, very tough because he can assassinate. He can team fight really well. He gets resets off of his invisibility. You know, he just has insane scaling. If they have Ardent Sensor, you know, off of your Hurricane bolts and your ultimate, then you're going to be, like, taking all of this extra Ardent damage. If they have, like, Janna, they're giving him all that extra AD. Like, there are just so many combinations with him that are just really, really nasty. So, very, very strong champion. So definitely keep that in mind. If you have like Braum's not that popular, but I think he would be able to, if like Braum starts just auto attacking everybody, he's going to trigger all of those stuns really quickly. So there's just a lot of growth stuff with him. It's really good. Obviously with Yuumi or something like that, if you go invisible and roll up on somebody with Yuumi and then she ults and you ult, like, there's a lot of good stuff going on there. So yeah, Twitch really underestimated. Fairly high win rate though, and a lot of it is just people just don't want to play this rat because he's a nasty little rat and people don't play him. I mean, he's only got a 2.8% play rate, but he's very strong. Okay, last few champs here. I guess we're going to go over time. I really wanted to make this less, but I know I didn't do one last patch, and I just wanted to talk about especially some of these builds and some of the meta shifts, because my tier list is a bit different from some of the other AD carry tier lists out there. I don't think anyone talks about Twitch, and I think that I prioritize champions like Draven a bit higher than others. Okay, so let's talk about Jinx. All right, Jinx is the highest win rate champion here with 54%. I think she's one of the highest in the whole game right now. And a lot of that is she's just very popular and she's very consistent. It's hard to mess her up, right? Like, yes, you can miss your rockets. Yes, you can miss your zap. Like, there's a few things you can do. But your decisions are often pretty simple. Like, in team fight, you just turn on rockets and right-click, you know, get resets and win. And she does scale really hard. So she has nice attack range, nice burst damage. She has a really good 1, 2, and 3 item power spike. With your Infinity Edge, your rockets can crit. So you're doing like AoE crits to people, and then when you get Hurricane to go with that, all of those bolts can also crit and hit AoE. So if you have 3 people lined up, you can get 9 shots on them because each bolt is also going to AoE and can crit. So she just completely deletes team fights because of how the rockets interact with Hurricane and Critical Strike. It's super, super strong. And once she gets a kill, then those resets are really good because she's able to just run around and kill everybody. She gets free kills off of her rocket. Pretty much, it's on a fairly low cooldown. If somebody's at half health, it's probably going to kill them. She has like, surprisingly decent disruption with those chompers. Like, Rakan can't jump through the chompers. Champions like, I don't think Nautilus or Leona can hook through the chompers. I think it stops them cold. They might go through it and then get stopped. I'm not 100% about that, because I haven't seen that interaction a lot. But I know that, like, 100% it stops Rakan from going through it, both with his W and his E, and it's really frustrating to play against. So, yeah, there's a lot of these, like, hard engaged, like, mobility champions. Those chompers just stop a lot of stuff. And then Zap does, like, pretty good, like, burst damage early on. So, just pretty good all-around champ. Just the hyperscaler of choice. You do have to have Peel to go with her. The chompers are useful, but she can get completely deleted by Assassin. So, and she is very vulnerable to hook champions, and there's a lot of those. You know, the Leona, the Nautilus, Thresh, Pike, you know, Rakan. You know, yes, chompers are nice, but they do take a second to arm, and so it can be tough to play around them sometimes. So, but if you do have some kind of peel, if you do have, you know, a Rakan or a Janna or something like that that can help you out with peel and protect you, then she's probably the best, like, protection AD carry right now. The reason that I have Twitch a little bit above her, and that might seem a little curious, because I think that she is stronger in the landing phase than Twitch, and I think she probably is stronger off of one item. I think a Jinx with Infinity Edge in the abstract is going to be better than Twitch, is because Twitch has the invisibility. And that just allows him to make a lot more plays, whereas, like, with Jinx, people are going to see her. And Twitch can actually get away. Like, if you see a gank coming, you can go invisible and, like, maybe get away from it. So, I just give Twitch a little bit of an edge in solo queue just because of the invisibility and the potential there. And he also has really good team fighting, similar to Jinx. I think he takes a couple more items to come online. You know, like, she's good on 1. He starts to become good on 2, but overall, she's going to be pretty strong. Okay, let's talk about Xayah, because I know this is something that people were debating me on the patch notes video, but I just want to go ahead and just come out here and just say I do not like this tier build. Okay, and I'm going to go into why again here. I would say really quickly, but it's probably going to take me 5 or 10 minutes because I really want to detail this. And just as a little bit of background, if we go down here and click on Xayah, look at items, overall win rate. Right, now the AP items, you might say, well, obviously you want to rush AP Xayah. You got to take some of this stuff in with a grain of salt. people win with these items so much because they're already really far ahead, because they're picking up these items at 32 minutes, and she scales really well. So anyone that's going AP or GA, they've already pretty much won the game at that point because it's late game Xayah. So that's partially why. And then Rapid Fire Cannon is really rare as well. Once again, you're probably winning the lane pretty hard. But surprisingly, Crit Xayah is actually the best. Now, that's not the build that I'm going to recommend, but I think that is better than tier build. So it's not as popular. It's only, 10% people rush Infinity Edge, but it is the best item with Xayah. The crit is really nice. It does allow you to get your evolve. It is a bit more expensive, but it does have really nice synergy with Ruin's Hurricane as well. So just kind of skipping the Gensus and just going straight for Infinity Edge, Ruin's Hurricane, and then maybe one more crit item after that, like maybe Rapid Fire Cannon or Phantom Dancer or something like that, can do really well. I mean, hell, maybe even Essence Reaver or something as a final item, although I think that's pretty rare, or like Bloodthirst or something like that. Anyways, those two items to start with on crit, really, really good. Okay. And part of that is, like I said, you get your evolve, and you get the benefit of Hurricane applying your passive to multiple people and being able to scale with Infinity Edge for additional crits on all of those bolts. So it's kind of Twitch-esque, right, with Hurricane, where you're applying Twitch's poison to everybody with Hurricane, and you're also able to crit. You're not getting the Blade of the Ruined King as well to stack, to like triple stack it, but it's still going to be really good. Nashor's Tooth, once again, is usually a third item. You're pretty far ahead if that happens. Okay, but let's go down to the main attraction here. So Gensus is pretty much in every build. So you're going to see that have like kind of an average win rate. It's pretty good when she gets to Gensus. And then we come down to Stormrazor versus Manamune. Now, Stormrazor does have, about a 0.5% extra win rate. So it's not like it's bad. And the fun fact is, people market Manamune as, oh my god, you get your evolve so much faster. Once you get your Manamune, isn't that the main argument? And I've said that too in the past. A lot of people believe that, when you get Manamune, because it's 2,400 gold faster, or it's 2,400 gold versus Stormrazor's 3,100, it's like, oh, that's easy, it's 700 gold cheaper, so I can just go back, get it immediately, and then get back into the lane, have my Q evolve, and pressure them for like a free 5 minutes for that 700 gold difference. It's like, no, not how it happens, because it's really, really hard to manage the wave properly with tier builds on any champion, but especially Xayah, because she really doesn't need that mana that often early on. But the stat that I wanted you to look at here is 12 minutes on Stormrazor is sort of the average time people complete this item as a first item. 11 minutes Manamune. It's only 1 minute faster. Both of these, in theory, will evolve your Q. However, with Manamune, if you go Pickaxe first and then Tier, which is the better version of it, and which also, so it's the better version of it, but it doesn't, because you get Pickaxe, you can actually do something in the laning phase, but then you're not stacking your Tier. So if you don't go Tier first, it's going to take you longer to stack your Tier once you complete your Muramana. Or once you complete your Manamune, because I think you need like 350 mana on Tier. You need it halfway stacked in order to get your Q evolve. So this 11 minutes is just when you complete Manamune. It's not guaranteed that you're going to have your extra 300 gold, because that does take a while to stack up. That'll take you an extra 5 minutes or so to stack that up. So yeah, so really when you have it stacked to get your Q evolve, it's almost certainly going to be past 12 minutes. Either way, even if you get it evolved immediately, like you rush Tier, get your Manamune in 11 minutes, you're still only going to get it 1 minute faster. That's literally 2 minion waves faster. So you're not really getting the Q evolve faster. So yeah, on paper it looks good, but the problem is, in real life, you get punished for that build. And it's very hard to manage it. So whenever you back and you get a Pickaxe, like in the best case scenario, you get a Pickaxe and they get a BF Sword, is what's usually going to happen. You're going to be behind, and they're going to pressure you if they're smart. So they're going to come up, they're going to notice your item, they're going to say, hey, you've got 15 less AD than me, you're playing Xayah, I'm playing Jhin, I'm playing Draven or something like that, I'm going to come up and bully you. So they're going to play up at the front of the lane, you're going to miss CS, you're going to fall behind, probably like at least 10 CS, and so that's going to slow you down a lot, and you're going to be giving up map pressure. So they're going to push you in, they're going to be able to roam for Scuttle, they're going to be able to roam for Dragon, just because you're going to have a lot less damage. And that matters a lot right now. And if you get dove or ganked, it's a lot less likely you're going to be able to turn it around. So if you're just giving the enemy jungler free reign of that river and they're getting all the scuttles, they're able to pressure dragons, you're going to have a really hard time. And it's just really hard to manage that timing window. Like, the thing about, like, the Manamune build is, the ideal thing in a perfect world, if you could draw it up, is you're going to be able to force it back super early when you get a pickaxe and they don't have BF sword. But that's a very, very narrow window, right? You're only going to have, you know, like a few hundred gold. That's like 2 or 3 waves. You're going to have a window of 2 or 3 waves where you have 875 and you can force them to back before they're able to get that gold. Remember that whenever you back, most of the time, they're going to clear 1 extra wave. So they're going to be a wave up on you if you back first. And so whenever you back, they're going to get a free clear on that wave and push it into your tower. And that's going to be, you know, if it's not a cannon wave, they're still going to get like 100 gold off of that wave. So even if you did have a little bit of an advantage, now your window's even narrower. Now it's something like just 200 gold and change, maybe 300 gold to be able to get that back timing. That is so hard to do. And a lot of times that's out of your control. You know, maybe you want to back, but your support's not helping you push. Maybe they just have a stronger lane and you can't push. Maybe they have like Draven, Xayah or something and you can't push to get a good back timing. Maybe their jungler, you know, comes down and ganks you or camps you and forces you to back before you can get your pickaxe or forces you to back early. There are just so many things that could go wrong with that timing. And if the timing is not perfect, you're going to be screwed. So you have to get that perfect pickaxe timing. And then not only that, you have to hold them in the lane until, like, so, like, most rosy scenario, you manage this perfectly, your support's on point, the enemy jungler never ganks you in 2019, ha ha ha, and you back. Okay, so you force a pickaxe, they get a pickaxe. Now you have to get your Manamune, so you have to have 2,400 gold before you can back. So you've got 875 out of it, so now you need whatever that number is, like 1525. So you have to hold them in lane for an additional 1525 gold, because if you let them back, right, if you both have pickaxes and you allow them to get that BF sword, so if they push you in and they go get that BF sword for 1300 and they come back before you're able to complete your mirror mana, you're going to be in a real world of hurt because they're going to be up a full BF sword on you. So there's so many things that have to go right with the mirror mana, and all of that, what do you get out of that? Maybe in the rosiest scenario, a 1 minute faster Q evolve. Maybe a 1 minute faster Q evolve. But what usually happens most of the time, you get pickaxe, they get BF sword, they bully the hell out of you in lane, and then you know, maybe you can go get your mirror mana at the same time they get pickaxe. They're still going to be really far ahead of you in terms of raw AD at that point, even if you get that. And a lot of times, you know, because they're bullying you out so hard, they might even complete their item, or they might get boots, or, you know, something else to gain some advantages on you. Maybe some daggers. Maybe they get tier 2 boots or something to go with their BF sword and pickaxe or whatever. It's just so hard to manage that window, and the payoff is so low. You get mirror mana, which is really not that great until you also get Gensus with it, you know, and you fully transform it into the mirror mana with Gensus. Then it starts to come online. Then it starts to do like some extra damage on every 3rd hit. Remember, they fixed her missile, so every missile hit does not trigger a hit off of Manamune. That was fixed a long time ago. So it only does 1 hit off of missiles, 1 hit off of your W. So it's okay. It's okay, but it's not worth the risk. It is not worth the risk. And you're not going to be able to evolve your attack speed. You know, you can get double evolve once you get Gensus plus, once you get your invisibility off of your E, I believe. Once you get your Gensu, or your Gensus plus your Storm Razor, you get 2 evolves. So I think it's too risky. I mean, yes, pro players do it. Yes, it does have a similar win rate overall. But I'm just telling you, anecdotally, from me playing it and theoretically seeing it, you are way too early, or you're way too weak in the early game, and it's too difficult to pull off. I think you'd have to take teleport in order to get your timings on point where you can actually get those windows I was talking about. And that means you're not going to have heal, which means you're not going to be able to 2v2, and they're going to bully you even harder. So yes, there are a lot of pro players that get this build, but you know what? They're pro players. They're very good at managing the lave. They're very good at forcing backs at the right time. They can call in junglers. They can say, you know, hey, jungler, come down here and gank for me. That's really how you're able to do this, pretty much. Is if you do it with a jungler, maybe you can do it. So at 875, you just have them, like, start top side, path down towards the bottom, and come gank your lane, push it in, and like force that back so that you get that pickaxe. And then they need to come down again and, like, you know, gank them and force them to back again before they get their BF sword, so that they're messed up on their timings. So you really need 2 ganks from the jungler at the right timing windows so that you can stop them from getting a BF. And it's just a lot, man. It's a lot to coordinate. And there are still people that are doing the Stormrazor build, you know, they're doing all right. So, like, Tarzan's doing it here, you know, right here. Samix is doing it. Gong is doing it. So, yeah, there are still some Muramana stuff floating out there. But I would say, like, in recent times, that it's pretty close to 50-50. Or there's at least a fairly large representation of Stormrazor still. And that's even in the top brackets where you can get that jungler help, where you can get that scaling, where you are going to take teleport to help out with that. So, I don't know. Those are my thoughts on it. If you really like that build, if you really enjoy it, then yeah, go for it. But and the thing is, like, tier is such a deceptive item because it feels good, and this is where sometimes feeling is something that can be really detrimental to you in your game, is because it feels good. It's nice to have infinite mana, basically. It's cool. It's like, oh my god, I get to spam all of my Qs. You know, I get to, like, throw Ws at people. Like, it's fun. Who doesn't like to have mana? Who doesn't like to do abilities? You know? It feels really cool. But, you know, I know AD is not a very sexy stat. It's like, okay, I get a raw 40 AD. It just, your stuff just does a little bit of extra damage. It doesn't feel that bad, or, like, it doesn't feel that different, right? So I think that's one of the most dangerous things here, is that, like, the mana feels really good, but in reality, you don't need it. Like, her Q is pretty low cooldown anyways. You don't need to be pushing them in over and over again. Kai'Sa's not a champion that's going to pressure them under tower a lot of times. You just don't need to do that. So, anyways, that's my recommendation for you, is go for Stormrazor. I know there will be people that are saying, but you got to go tier. You don't have to go tier. What's up? I think it died on the table in there. She's probably about ready to get up. I think I heard it beeping a second ago. But anyway, so yes, you can go for it if you want, but I'm just telling you, for all the reasons I just said, the timing is too difficult. You're going to get bullied out. It's a really early game meta now. You're not going to get your Q evolved that much faster, because you're not going to, in a real life situation, most of the time in solo queue, you're not going to get those preferable back timings, so you're not going to get that Q evolve faster, like you would on paper, at least. And you're just a lot slower. Yeah, I mean, you know, Stormrazor kind of sucks. Like, it's not that great. It does not feel good to buy, but it's better than Muramana, you know, for the first 25 minutes of the game until you get Muramana completely stacked and you get your Gensus. It's going to be a lot better, and it's going to allow you to get it just has way better itemization. Like, you can get a BF sword to match their BF sword. You can get some daggers to match their daggers or whatever. And you actually have a preferable window where you can get this still at 3100 before they complete their Infinity Edge. Kind of hard to get that down, but it can work. So I think it's good. Or try out the Infinity Edge. That's a lot less common. It's a lot less popular, but as we saw, that's actually the highest win rate by a large margin. Now, sometimes that can be a little weird when you don't have many people doing it, because it might just be a few, like, Smurfs or one-tricks that are doing that. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt, those stats. But I would highly recommend trying out non-tier stuff if you can. If it works for you, go for it. But in my mind, every time I have a tier Kai'Sa on my team, it just makes me want to pull my hair out. Yes, I do win some games where there's some, but it just feels really, really bad. It feels terrible in the laning phase. Like, if you get really far ahead, yeah, it's good because you get to skip the awkward tier phase. You get to get your Muramana and, you know, start working your Gensus really quickly. So yeah, if you get 3 kills or something in the lane, sure, it feels great because you bypass the weakness. But anything would feel great, you know, if you have 3 kills in the laning phase. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a hater of it. Maybe I'm wrong about it. It's totally possible, but, you know, based on the reasoning that I've seen and based on what I've read and just the stats that I'm looking up here, different people and things like that, it just looks like the Stormrazor for solo queue. If you're a silver player playing in solo queue or a gold player playing in solo queue, you know, it just feels like that's going to be a lot more reliable. It's going to be, it just requires a lot less macro knowledge, a lot less team reliant. You don't have to have the jungler gank for you. You don't have to have a support with a brain, you know, to help you out with wave management. You can just be strong. You can match them. Yes, you're still going to be weaker than Draven. Yes, you're still going to be weaker than Jhin in the laning phase, but at least you can kind of put up a fight. So that way, if your Leona gets a really good engage, or your Nautilus gets a good engage, or your Rakan or whatever, you might actually be able to kill him early on. So, and that's a big, you know, if you have a BF sword instead of like a tier or something with these builds, that's a really, really big deal, because she has not only just the auto attacks, but she has fantastic AD scaling, especially on her missiles. So, that's my word of the wise. If you go Stormrazor on Xayah, she's probably tier 1. If you're really good on Xayah, and you get Stormrazor on her, and you pressure early, and you get ahead, and you're just really good with her, she could easily be tier 1. You know, maybe she substitutes in for like Twitch or something, sneaking out the bottom of tier 1. But if you're a tier Xayah, I mean, she's probably tier 3, I think. So I just put her in tier 2. But anyways, Ezreal's kind of always a weird champion, because he always has a low win rate, but he's so strong if you're good on him. He's like the Yasuo of AD carries. It's right. It just looks like a god if you're really great on him, but most people are not that great on him. He's a tier user, just like Xayah. Now, he does have to get tier early, and he does actually take advantage of it, because he can spam his mana. He has poke. You know, he has a lot of really good things he can do with that mana early. And he just needs to go for that. But one of the really nice things about Ezreal is that he can actually get some defensive stuff if you go Iceborne Gauntlet, and then you can even go Ninja Tabby if you want to. You have really good range. You have good escape with your E. You can slow people with your Iceborne slows. So that makes him one of the best AD carries against assassins, or just against almost anything as far as like defensive. He's a defensive mastermind. You know, he's the Floyd Mayweather of AD carries here. So, but you got to hit your Qs. You got to like resist the temptation to E forward, and yeah. I'm not sure what you get at I get a third item on him lately. I think it's Blade the Ruined King. That's kind of funky still. Obviously, most of the time you're gonna go Manamune, Iceborne Gauntlet. Some people go Trinity if you're really far ahead and they don't have like that many assassins that you're scared of. I guess you can go Trinity. That's a lot of losses. Yeah, I think it's just Blade. Yeah. Trinity, you don't get Trinity if you have Iceborne. You don't want 2 Sheen items. So it's like either or. Some people are still doing Ludens, but yeah, probably just Blade the Ruined King. Allows you to apply it on your Q shots, get a bit more kiting potential, gives you some lifesteal. So that's probably what I'd go for your 3 items. So yeah, he is weaker in the lane. He does have tier, but he can farm really far back off the wave. You know, you can spam those Qs, hit the minions. Yes, they can block them, but they're going to be taking damage. And if they block it, you're still getting Klepto procs. So you have Klepto to give you the extra gold. You can farm with your Qs safely from the back line. You just have really good utility with all that mana later on in the game. You can spam those Qs. So I just think it makes a lot more sense on Ezreal than it does on Xayah, because Xayah still has to walk up to the wave, unless she wants to use her W that's like a 20-second cooldown. Still has to walk up, still has to contest, you know, even if she has tier. Doesn't really need the mana that much, because her like Q is not something that you spam all the time, and it's a fairly low amount of mana. I think it's like 50 mana. So yeah, Ezreal is going to be better with tier. So he's still weak early, but he does start to come online once you get your Sheen plus Mirror mana. You can actually start doing some pretty decent pokes and pretty decent burst in the right situation. So Ezreal could be tier 1 if you're super good on him, but most Ezreals are not that good. However, I think he is solid in this meta overall, because as much as I kind of meme him on the stream, just because he is so safe and he does have some pretty good game, especially against AD assassins as far as an AD carry goes. So pretty decent. Lucian did just get a couple of buffs. So he's okay. You know, I think he got a little bit of extra AD. He's a good early game bully, so that's really handy. You know, against things like Ezreal and Xayah, which once again are the most popular AD carries. But people are doing kind of a new build with him. I don't know if I even updated this, actually. I think people are going, Essence Reaver, Infinity Edge. Yeah, actually, I was recommending this. The last time I updated it was August 16. So I've been recommending this for a while, and people are just now catching on to it. So he's not like ultra high on the win rate here. He's like at 50%. But yeah, more and more people are doing that build. And the thought is you just need to be powerful early. Like Blatherin King is just not going to be that strong on most champions with the exception of Twitch in the early game. So like going Blade into Black Cleaver just doesn't work when there aren't tanks in the meta right now. And so a lot more people see some of the noobs are still getting Blatherin King here. But yeah, I guess some of the non-noobs are also getting Blatherin King. So I guess it's still pretty popular. But I'm much more scared of this Essence Reaver rush on him. I mean, the Blade is classically just so good because your double shot procs it twice. And once again, lifesteal, kind of like mana, feels really good. It's like, okay, I'm healing up. This is great. But you're paying a very heavy cost for that. You're just not going to do as much damage early on, potentially. So Lucian is a bit of a strange case because he does get 2 procs of Blade every time he uses his passive. But I still think that Essence Reaver is going to be really strong. Now, is he rushing Blade or Essence? He's rushing Blade than Essence. I still think Essence is really good. You know, you get more cooldowns. You get raw AD. Just scales really well with a lot of your abilities in your kit. Especially your ultimate. It has crazy AD ratios on it. So, I think that's pretty good. Infinity Edge is a little more questionable, as you can see. It can be good, but of course, like, your abilities don't crit. Like, your ult doesn't crit, your Q doesn't crit, and that's where a lot of your damage comes from. So that's a little more questionable, but if you already have Essence Reaver, you are going to be normally auto-attacking. Your passive can apply crits on the double shots. So, you know, he can be pretty strong with that build. So it's kind of up to you. It looks like, you know, a lot of people go either Blatherin King or Essence Reaver and then some kind of Zeal item, and then they get the other one. So I think the build that I see Essence Reaver being really scary. Like Essence Reaver into Rapid Fire Cannon into Infinity Edge, I think is really good. Although Blade, once again, can potentially be good, but anyways, you can kind of feel him out. Press the attack is really nice. It does give you a lot of extra burst damage. He is really good in lane, like I said, against some of these passive laners. And then just footwear and biscuits are pretty good as well. And so I like the Essence Reaver, Infinity Edge, Phantom Dancer. I'd probably go Rapid Fire. Rapid Fire Cannon. But it's up to you. So you can still do Blade if you want. It's okay. I mean, it does help him kite. He does gain a lot of power off of that mobility and slowdown of the enemy. And Bilge Water is a pretty good power spike for that extra burst 100 damage. So it's up to you. He's okay. I think that crit scales better, and I think you have a better 2 items. So Blade is probably better off of 1 item than Essence, but I think that like Essence plus another crit item is going to be better at 2 items. So it just kind of depends on what you need. And the crit's going to be better against the squishy. Blade is probably going to be better against tanks. And then finally, Sivir. She's been nerfed a lot. I mean, you can still play her, but those nerfs are pretty severe. Her mana costs a lot more. She takes a long time to come online. And I think they nerfed how much her bounces do as well. So you're seeing a lot less of her over time. But you could, you know, she still has really good utility if you have a bunch of meatballs on your team that want to run in. If we get back to like a team fight type of meta, especially if they ever nerf like some of these team fight champions, most notably Jinx, maybe she comes back in a little bit more. But after some of the most recent nerfs to her crit, and I don't remember exactly what they were. Let me see just really quick what they were. I know it was 15 extra mana on the Ricochet, but I think that they nerfed the damage too a couple of patches ago. Yeah, that's a lot. The AD ratio is only 30%. That's massive. That's a huge, huge nerf. So yeah, they made her Ricochet cost 25% more mana. And it used to be bug fix, AD ratio reduced. What? So it used to be, like, back on 9.4, it was a 75% ratio, AD ratio. Then they reduced it to 70, and now they've reduced it, I guess, in the early game down to 30. So late game, she does get it back, but it does help. It does hurt her early game. So She's still okay, especially against engaged champs, because she has her spell shield, but she's not nearly as strong as she once was. So you can try her out. Great team fight. Really good at pushing. Really good at lane pressure. So if you think you need an AD carry that might need to work a side lane, like you just don't have a good split pusher on your team or something, she could be a decent option if you want to take teleport and just like farm side lanes in the mid game. Then she could be a decent option still, I think. Okay, and the final ones, and then we'll go ahead and have that be done. I know I've done some long tier lists here, but I don't know. I just want to be thorough, and there were some things that I wanted to sort of make my case for with the itemization. So Miss Fortune's okay. I think if you want to get her, the on-hit build is best with the, you know, getting a lot of points in your W and then going for the Blade of the Ruined King and taking press the attack. I just think that other champions do auto attacks better than she does. I have seen a little bit of a resurgence in the lethality builds with her ult. The problem is right now, just she's good, like a good bully in the laning phase, but a lot of people just are not having clean front-to-back 5v5 fights, and that's really where she shines, where she just gets to sit there and channel her ult, and there's just so much hard engage from the enemy, and she can just get it, like, she has no escapes once she gets attacked, so with so many Pikes and Nautiluses and Leonas and Rakans running around, I just think it's too risky to run her. Tristan is okay. She does snowball really well. If you get ahead, it's almost impossible to keep her off of you most of the time. If she just jumps in with her W, throws her bomb on you, and then gets the reset. She does take towers really quickly. She gets a lot of range, and she scales really well. The problem is she has a really hard time managing waves because her explosive shot forces her to push all the time. It makes it very difficult for her to last hit under tower. So if you're getting pushed in, or if it's really dangerous for you to push into them, if they have a hard engaged champ like Nautilus or Leona, and you might get camped by the jungler, it could be a problem. But she does have an escape with her W to help with that. She does have her R to help out with that. That's on a pretty low cooldown. She does a surprising amount of damage too. If you get that, you know, level 6, you jump in, you get it like a full bomb on somebody, and then you ult him. I think that ult still does like 300 damage at level 1, which is crazy. But she just takes several items to come online. Like, she doesn't have any percentage damage. She doesn't really have any abilities that do upfront burst damage. It just requires a lot of autos to get her bombs going. So I think she just takes too much time right now to come online and to kill people, unless she's like hyper-fed. So it's not that she's terrible. She does scale really well. I just think she's a bit slow right now, and just the fact that you can't manage the wave puts you at a disadvantage in a lot of matchups. So that's a problem. Now, I do think Cassiopeia can actually be pretty good if you need an AP champion bottom, which is not always the case, but I still think she's pretty good. I mean, she does really heavy sustained damage with her E. She has good, like, you know, upfront kind of burst damage, especially for a mage down bot lane. You have your ult for utility. It's very, very easy to last hit with her with your E. So if your team just has like a lot of AD, you got a Talon middle, you got a Kayn jungle, and you've got like, you know, top lane Irelia, you know, I think she's one of the best AP options you can get. You can also run Corki, but I'd rather run Cassiopeia instead. You can do like Kaisa with some AP, but it's not as good as it used to be. So, anyways, I think she's worth a shot down bottom lane. And then Yasuo is another one who's kind of weird. You know, if you have something like a Nautilus or a Alistar, Rakan, if you have champions with knockups, I think that can be pretty dirty, especially if you're against a really passive lane that can't pressure you early. You know, if you're against the Kaisa or the Ezreal or whatever, if you're just going to get to free farm, he is pretty good. Now, keep in mind, you're not going to have, like, good siege. If you have Yasuo, you're kind of committing to most likely a 1-3-1 strategy if you have a split pusher top lane. So, and you need like a ranged mid laner and a ranged support probably, just so you can pressure something in the, you know, mid game with the towers. So that's kind of the biggest knock against Yasuo. He is very good against range. He is very good against AD carries, but he's melee. So it creates like spacing problems in fights. Potentially you're going to be too grouped up against AoE teamfight comps. You're not going to be able to siege towers very easily, so that can create some spacing problems. But he is very good, you know, if you get kills, especially if you have a wombo combo bot lane, you have someone else who can do those knockups reliably for you, you can get a lot of kills. So he's hard to play, but if you're like a Yasuo one-trick and you're just auto-filled bot lane, you know, he can definitely work. And then Caitlyn, I just have her on here because I feel like I have to, but I think she's terrible right now because most people just don't play her correctly. Like, you need to be landing headshots, you need to be landing traps on people, Qs, auto-attacking them every chance you get in the laning phase. And so many Caitlyns just sit there and just auto the wave and never pressure. So she's super high pressure, but if you don't do it, you fall really far behind. The main reason for this is a lot of your damage is conditional, especially like they really need to step on the traps before you're going to do serious damage to them. Your autos just don't hurt that much early on. You don't have a lot of great modifiers outside of the headshot. You don't do percentage damage. Your base attack speed is so slow. It's one of the slowest in the game. So I think it's like 0.56 early on, whereas most AD carries are at least 0.65. Why does that matter? Because every time you get any attack speed buffs, they're a lot less useful. It's like you're getting taxed. Anytime you buy a Zeal item, you're getting taxed whenever you play her versus other people. So she just notoriously is like pretty like okay in the normal laning phase. Pretty good on one item with Infinity Edge if you're landing traps correctly. But then after that, like item number 2 is way weaker than most other champions' item number 2. Frankly, item number 1 is weaker than a lot of the top end picks. Like these champions are just going to be way more useful and or do way more damage than you will. Now, if you have a really good support that's on point, if they hard engage, you know, like a Leona or a Nautilus or whatever, and you drop that trap and you full combo them, like you headshot, net backwards, Q while you're netting backwards, and then headshot again, yeah, you can one-shot people when she's really OP. But it's like outside of Challenger, people just aren't going to do that. At least I don't see that. It's very rare. Like, I think you have to start getting into Diamond Caitlyn's before they do that because at her core, she's really like a burst mage more so than she is a sustained auto attacker. But people just don't play her as such. I think she's a lot closer to something like, I don't know, something like a Jhin than she is to a Jinx. And I think people play her much more like Jinx than they do like Jhin. Except Jinx is a lot easier to pull off his burst because all you have to do is wait for your 4th attack and then just auto-attack him. Whereas Caitlyn has to get people to step on her traps. So she can be really good in the right hands, but most people do not have the right hands for her. Okay, so that's going to be a really long video. Sorry about that, but I just, especially some of these newer builds, like the Ashe build and just critiquing the popular Xayah build, I just thought needed a bit more of an explanation. You'll notice Vayne is not on this list. Do not play that champion. She is bad right now. Nobody's playing tanks, okay? She just gets bursted out. If you want to play something that's weak in the lane that is probably going to be good later, just play something like, you know, Xayah or Twitch, Ezreal. All of these are better options, I think. I see so many Vaynes. I know she's fun to play. She looks cool. Vampire Hunter. She's got a great skin, a great line of skins, but just don't play her right now. I think she's the only like mainstream omission that I have here. I mean, Varus might be the other one. I just feel like Ashe is just a better Varus. Her engage is better. Her itemization is better. Just Blade of the Wind King is not good right now for reasons I keep saying over and over again. There just are not tanks in this meta. And Gensu's has been nerfed as well. So you notice a lot of the Gensu champions are not here anymore. Xayah is the only one that's left. But yeah, we're not seeing the Vayne as high of a priority anymore. We're not seeing Varus because that Gensu nerf was huge. It's every 3rd attack instead of every 2nd. So that really hurts him. And the fact that, like I said, Blade's not that good. So just all of his items are kind of bad right now. Nashor's even, I think they nerfed like his AP ratios on like his, on his W or something a while back. So they've nerfed his AP build. They've nerfed his on hit build. He just doesn't have a lot left. He does have his ult, which is nice. But once again, Ashe is similar, has better itemization, especially with the Comet build. I'll just go with Ashe. If you do play him and you're really accurate, you can do the Legolas build. I think that people, it's just like you just go straight lethality with him and just like try to one-shot people with arrows. It can be okay if you hit those a lot. You can push waves really quickly with it and then try to snipe people under tower, but I just think that it's very, very skill intensive, and I think there are better options out there. But if you do want to play him, you know, that's maybe somewhere you could go. I mean, it looks like most people are still trying to do the Blade of the Wind King build. Here would be an example of like that Legolas build that I was talking about. You know, just your standard like Ghost Blade, Dust Blade type of stuff. Yeah, some people are going for it, but most people are still doing the Blade of the Wind King on hit, although the Ghost Blade build is kind of becoming a little more popular. But He's okay, but I think there are probably better options. Anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this. Be sure to like and subscribe if you did. Be sure to go check out the support tier list. They will be shorter in the future. It's just I hadn't done one for a couple of patches, so I just wanted to catch everyone up to speed on the new builds. Just kind of put in my 2 cents on popular builds just to kind of explain why I think they're good or why I think they're overhyped. But anyways, it's going to be it. Have a good day. See you next time.